Hey everybody, welcome. Today I am thrilled to welcome you to our episode of The Spice Age. My name is Ian Thomas Hayes. I am here with my co-host with the mostest out on the West Coast. Hey, what's up, Chef Toomey? How you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing great. Still waiting on a little bit of snow out here in Mammoth. It's been a dry December, but looks like we got a storm brewing here in the next couple of days. We might get up to 6 feet of snow in the next week, so that's going to help us out a lot. So I'm excited.
You say like, are you talking 6 feet over the course of a couple of days here, or like what kind of time frame is that for that kind of snow?
You know what? I've seen it snow 5 feet overnight, so anything's possible. But unfortunately, it's too warm. So it's the dream is it rains in town, snows on the mountain, then we're all good. But eventually, winter will kick in. I think by Christmas Eve we're looking at significant precipitation. Now I sound like a weatherman. The low will be moving in. I've heard 6 to 10 feet, but you know what? You hear that and go, we'll wait and see until it happens. But you'd be surprised. You'll wake up overnight and it'll be 3 or 4 feet of snow in your driveway. And at my house where I live, if there's 4 feet of snow in my driveway, there's 8 feet in Mammoth. It's twice as much. So. But
jeez,
yeah, it's crazy.
I can see green grass in the background there. So
I know that's normally we have a lot of snow, but it's really warm out. But it always warms up just before a storm, and it's been a slow December so far. But we're going to ramp up for the holidays. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah. So, we're getting to, we'll date ourselves when we're releasing this podcast, but we are just about a week away from Christmas here.
Yep.
We do have snow here on the ground in Ohio. We had a nice storm come through last Saturday. We got right between 6 and 7 inches of snow on the ground. It's beautiful. You get to see all the Christmas lights with the snow on the ground. It's nice not to see dead leaves. And of course, our grass here in Ohio has been brown since November, because that's just what Ohio does. But we do have we have the snow on the ground, and we do have a college football team who's going to play for a national championship title again. So we're in good spirits in Ohio.
That's exciting. Yeah, go Buckeyes.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Yeah,
go Buckeyes. So what do you have on your schedule for family for the holidays? What's your plans?
Well, it started off last weekend. My son came up from Long Beach. He plays Long Beach State Division I baseball. He brought a couple of his teammates up, Dylan Lena, Jake Evans, 2 of their top players, and they don't get out much. All they do is train baseball, sleep, and go to school. So I had them up. There's no skiing or snowboarding allowed. The safety risk is not. They're not allowed to do any of that. So we did. We just spent time together, had some good food, took them out to the gun range. Shot some guns, took them hiking, took them fly fishing. And it was so fun to watch them they had the best time. And I told them, they were thanking me. And I said, hey, without you, I couldn't feel this good watching you guys have fun. So selfishly, I invited you up here because it makes me feel good to watch you guys have fun. And just some young guys that are unbelievable athletes and unbelievable human beings. I've never been around a group of guys that just the whole time you're having fun and they're always saying thank you and very grateful for every moment that they're up here. We did it all. We did wiffle ball in the driveway like we always have, and throwing wiffle ball to Dylan Lena, my son, and Jake Evans. You better watch out because they could kill you with a wiffle ball. They hit the ball hard enough.
That's a hard line drive right there. That put a hole through you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but yeah, we're fired up for the upcoming dirtbag season, and it starts in February. So, it's a big part of my. I work as much as I can, so when dirtbag baseball starts up, I'm ready. So I love it.
All right, so I've got to know, Chef Toomey Seasoning, what's the Christmas go-to for you, buddy?
Christmas go-to? Well, I'll tell you what. I've been serving a lot of prime rib, and we cook prime rib at home for Christmas Eve dinner. And so many people, we did a prime rib dinner for the high school football team awards dinner last night. I cooked off 6 big, huge prime rib. And you know what? It's weird. So many people have so many different, I do it this way, that way. And all I do is rub olive oil, Toomey seasoning for the crust, rub it around it, and I let it get up to room temp before I throw it in a hot oven. But that people go, what do you put on the outside of that prime rib? That's different. It's just our house seasoning, and we get raving reviews. Nothing else. No marinades, no herbs, no nothing. Maybe a little bit of the drippings on top as an au jus. But man, we were serving up prime rib last night. They were going nuts for it. Nice seasoned crust on the outside. So every bite with a little bit of that crust. It's the magic. It's the magic. And our seasoning at the restaurant, people come in and just buy it by the they buy so much of it all the time for Christmas gifts, for cooking at home, whatever, and flying off the shelf. It's great. And I like when people say this is all we
my Toomey seasoning grill master bag.
Well, and the funny thing is when people they come in and go, this is all we use. I go, it's all you should use. Everything else is just stuff you don't even need, And it's like you could buy all these other gadgets, but when it comes down to it, it's the basic essential to cooking. I've always said it, and I'm lazy. I don't like a lot of moving parts to cooking in the kitchen. It's the one and done, boom, rub it and send it in the oven. And everyone's cooking techniques are different, but the outcome's the same if you use the seasoning. You could sear it in a hot oven, or you could slow roast it. You could boil it in a crock pot. It doesn't matter. The outcome's the same. You have a balance of flavor, and it makes everything taste right. I love the taste of a carrot, not the taste of something else on there, garlic, or some people they put all these different things on vegetables. Garlic's okay, but you don't need anything, just a balance of Toomey seasoning on it, and you're going to be good to go. And it's not me saying, it's everyone else coming to the restaurant going, you got to sell this across America. I go, we're trying. We're doing our podcast. Our good brother Bill Anderson has been nothing but a saint, and we're making progress. Every time we get it in the public's hand, they just buy more of it, and it's fun because it makes people happy, and as we say in the end, brings everyone together.
Yep. Well, I want to remind people, because you are talking about this, that we have so we host this podcast on ToomeySeasoning.com. You can go there and you can find every new episode. We release this podcast every 2 weeks. We also the podcast is hosted on YouTube. So of our people out there that are watching, anybody that's been a fan of ours or anybody's following you, check it out on YouTube. But here in the next week or so, we will be able to listen to this audio version of the podcast. You're going to be able to go to Spotify or Amazon or iTunes, and I'm going to be putting out I already have, we're waiting for it to kick in, the audio of just the podcast. You can cruise down the road in your car, and you can listen to us talk to such great guys like Trevor Hoffman or Mike Sweeney or Joey D or any of these guys we've had a chance to interview. Comedian Jeff Foser from Minneapolis, or most recently, or actually today, we are very excited because we're going to get to interview one of my friends here from Columbus, somebody on my side of the country, my buddy Matthew Herchik. So Matthew is a reporter here from Columbus, Ohio, from NBC4. Chef, we've talked about Matt before. Matthew is taking this. It's a leap of faith. He posted on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I read his post, and I had to sit down because it was so moving to me. Matthew he's an NBC4 reporter. He's on camera every day. And I think for somebody in his position, and Chef, you are in front of the public every day in California and on the podcast, and now you're in social media more than you ever have been. I know that they're up in that, and I'm on stage and I'm in front of people 4 or 5 times a week singing. So to use your public platform to share your faith, I think, is a testament to how strongly you believe in something. And the guy we're going to talk to today, Matthew, is doing that. He's walking that walk, and he's sharing that with people. I'm so excited for everybody to get to meet him today, because that's the things we talk about are faith, family, food, and friendship. And this guy embodies all 4 of them, and he's getting ready to make a huge step in his life. And I think he's got a great story to tell, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy that.
Absolutely. Unbelievable.
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. We're going to hear from our friends at Toomey Seasoning. They got a little commercial for us. We're going to chat, listen a little about them. Remember, if you haven't gotten your Toomey Seasoning, still time for you guys to get that for the holidays. And if not even for the holidays, get it for the rest of the year because it's good year round on absolutely everything.
That's
Just
it.
got my, I was saying earlier, I got my Grill Master bag the other day in the mail. It's actually it's going to be in my son's stocking for Christmas. It's a giant bag of Toomey seasoning that I'm so excited for him to open that. He's a true believer. So we're going to take a break here, and we'll be back here in just a second with our friend Matthew Herchik from Columbus, Ohio.
Can't wait.
Thank you, guys.
Toomey seasoning is a blend of kosher salt, roasted black pepper, pink peppercorn, and just a hint of garlic. I've been in the business for 40 plus years, and through trial and error, you only find the finest qualities, the finest blend that you put together that really elevates the flavor of anything you're cooking. You can use it on steak, chicken, fish, salads, potatoes, French fries. You name it, the possibilities are endless. I'd like to see the seasoning on every table across America, because what that means is families are together, whether it's over a dinner table, outdoor barbecue, whatever you're doing, just bringing everybody together. That's what life's all about. Toomey seasoning is redefining salt and pepper, one sprinkle at a time.
Everybody, welcome back to the Spice Age. My name is Ian Thomas Hayes. I'm joined here with my buddy Chef Matt Toomey, and we are so excited today to welcome one of our friends here from Columbus, Ohio. Finally, somebody on our side of the country. Our buddy from NBC4 here in Columbus, Ohio, Matt Herchik. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's really exciting.
Awesome. We're excited. We've been looking forward to having you on here. So we've had, Chef, how far are we into this? I've lost count on how many podcasts we've been doing.
I don't know. We've got about 9 now. We start, what's funny is I look in the background at our, hey, what time of year is it now? And actually it's December. We're supposed to have snow, but yeah, I think we started in July. So we've been cranking them out once a week. We have anyone from golf professionals to Major League Baseball to comedians to legendary news people like Matthew that we have on today. So we're blessed.
We are blessed.
Yeah.
We're blessed. And it's an exciting time, Matthew. So I'm really thrilled to have you on today because, you made, so you've been with NBC4 here in Columbus for how many years?
5 years. So my first night on air was election night 2020. So baptism by fire right there.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So about 2 weeks ago, you made a post on Facebook, and I was in my bedroom. I'm talking to my wife, and we're scrolling through, and I see your post. And you and I had a chance to hang out a few weeks prior to that, and we'd talked a little bit about you were making a transition, thinking about things, and then I got to see your post, and there was a couple things that came out about your post that I'd really just like to ask you about, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Not rhetorical. I really want your approval to ask you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the things that Chef and I get into on this podcast, first of all, we're big into faith. We're big into family. We're big into food here and family. Your I want to call it a declaration on Facebook because you're a public figure. You are on camera every day. And I think, we're in this wake of being in a country where people can say anything, anytime. And I think the scariest thing for people, and this is my opinion, but I think the scariest thing for these people is to talk about their faith publicly. For some reason, they'll talk about everything else that's going on. But I read your post and I got goosebumps. I was moved because I was so happy to hear you say that you were taking this leap of faith, that you were listening to God. You were trusting that He had this bigger plan for your life. I'm just so curious, like, how did you get there to that step?
So my faith has always been tremendously important to me. When I was a kid growing up, I actually had dinner with some of my family last night. We were talking about it. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I used to tell people I wanted to be one of two things when I grew up. I either wanted to be a priest or I wanted to work at Burger King. I love chicken tenders. I was a chicken tender fiend, so I figured if the priesthood didn't work out, free chicken tenders for life was a pretty good alternative.
That's hilarious.
But seriously, faith was always really important to me. When I was a kid growing up, I had little holy water font right by like the light switch on my door, like right when you walked in my room. I would keep like my palms from Palm Sunday all year behind it. I had a rosary, at my nightstand and things like that. And my faith was always really important to me. And, it's so much to the point that like my mom used to always say to me, people in my family used to always come to me specifically for prayers. Like they would say, hey, if a family member was sick or if my dad's company was going through another round of layoffs, like my family always asked me for prayers. And I always remember my mom telling me like, God listens to your prayers, and when you pray for something, the best scenario comes out of it. And so my faith was always really important to me from a young age, and that wasn't because of me. I had family that took me to mass every Sunday. Me and my parents were there every Sunday, and I went to Catholic schools for 12 years, and it was always something really important to me. And I think, kind of like a lot of people, when you grow up and you get to high school and there's pressure to fit in, and you get to college and you're trying to find yourself and all of these things, you've got all of this stuff in the world, like directing you in the wrong ways, like telling you the wrong things are important, money and
Yeah.
job and cars and just material things, the transient things. And so I think for a few years, I just for a lot of my adult life, I just kind of felt like I got lost and I was chasing the wrong things. 3 years ago during Lent, I really made a commitment, said, I'm going to go to Stations of the Cross every Friday. I'm going to go to mass every single day during Holy Week and every Sunday. And I just like told myself, like, I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not happy with where, my direction in life, and just searching for things in the wrong places. And so I just, a few years ago, really like re-immersed myself personally in it. And then I don't know, maybe just like in the last year, I just felt really compelled to talk about it more, and I felt really compelled to share it more. It kind of actually was initiated through a couple of stories that I tried to do through NBC4, and I can talk more about those if you guys want. But I pursued a couple of stories at NBC4 and talked to a couple of people that just really kind of wowed me, and I was like, wow, these people are just truly grounded in the right things, and great things are happening for them, and there's a reason for that. And so I just think, I work in this industry that can be really dark at times. We deal with a lot of breaking news, a lot of just really, really bad things at times, and it weighs on people. And for me, particularly working in the mornings, I see a lot of that more than other people. And so I noticed it affecting my mental health and just everything more. And so, yeah, just I would say about a year ago or so, I really felt like more compelled to share it and to be more bold and be more open about my faith.
That's amazing. You and I have gotten the chance to talk a few times because we're involved with the same charity, Big Brothers Big Sisters there.
Right.
Shout out to our friends from those guys. They've done some great things in town here. And we, topically, we just, back and forth, and we kind of dug a little bit deeper into this the last time we were involved in it was this last fall. But when we met a few weeks ago and we started talking about where you were going, what you're doing, it really excited me because I thought, man, this is something that Chef and I talk about all the time, about how you get these opportunities because, and Chef, I want you to weigh in here on this one too, jump in, because you're in an industry, Chef, it's high pressure, it moves fast, and you're constantly met with some people, and we've talked about this, you've had some experience with people, they're in bad moods, they're in bad places, and you take your time out of your day to come out of there. I remember one story where there's a lady who was upset and you went out and just told her she was beautiful and how happy you were there, and just to immediately kind of change her mind and to share, and it's not necessarily sharing your faith with them, but it's being a good person, sort of walking that walk as Jesus would. So, yeah.
It's actually setting the example. Instead of I always call it non-reactive behavior. Whatever people are doing around you, um, you can observe a behavior, whatever, but always just being a shining example at all times. And it's easy to do once it clicks in your daily behavior. It's not a big deal. I had a guy, we opened this bar up about 3 weeks ago, and so now I'm spending a lot of time late night keeping an eye on the bar, and the bar's connected to our restaurant. So people, it's kind of interesting. You watch people at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. By 11 o'clock, they start acting a lot different. And this big tall guy, he yelled something at me. I won't repeat it, but for some reason, he just looked at me and he was like, blah, blah, blah. And the guy with him put his hand out, said, "Hey, I'm sorry." And I said, "Don't be sorry." I said, "I love that guy so much. I'd never be mad at him for saying that." And the guy looked at me and he goes, "Hey, give me a hug." And we started laughing. And it's being able to break the pattern of, oh, you did this, I'm going to do that. And every time it's like you feel like you're guided by something higher than yourself when you're able to do it and practice it. And I know a lot of people, they'll say, "Hey, when all else fails, your faith will get you through." But I'm like, if you just start with your faith just you don't have to worry about it anymore, and it's an amazing feeling. And I do have some of my top producing friends, and when I say top producing, I'm talking about their families. Everybody, there's people get make a bunch of money, and everybody has different levels of success. But the most successful one is you look at someone's family and you go, what are they doing differently? And every single one of them, they pray together, they go to church, just like Matthew. Like they say, you start with that first, and then you don't have to worry about anything, and it all falls into place. I I
Yeah.
I just try to follow the role models that I want to live my life, and most of them are guided that way.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
for me, like, I work in this industry where, yeah, we're on the news a lot and stuff like that. But, a big part of our job is, immersing yourself in the community and trying to leave the community in a better place, than you found it. And so, one of the things that I did, right from the start when I got back to Columbus from North Carolina was, volunteer efforts and just like going out and being a part of the community and finding where the needs were and trying to help fill those needs however I could, whether it was volunteering for a couple of hours or whether it was, emceeing events like you talked about, Ian, with Big Brothers Big Sisters, or I joined the NetCare Access Board, which is an organization here in Columbus that provides mental health and behavioral health and homelessness services, to the community and stuff like that. So that was, one of the big things for me is like, how can I do something beyond just, telling a story on the news? Because, I didn't go to school for journalism. I have a very kind of strange kind of path to this industry. And so, I don't know. It's kind of maybe taboo to say, for me, it wasn't like the journalism aspect that attracted me to the industry. It was the opportunity to tell stories that made an impact and helped people and made a difference in the community. And so, to your point, like I just started as I was doing more of that stuff. I just found so much more value in it. And I was talking about it with a coworker the other day. I was like, when you're a kid and you get to Christmas and things like that, and you hear like parents and adults say, "Oh my gosh, it's so much more fun to give gifts now than it is to receive them." And you're like, "No, there's no way that that's possible. Opening a present, that's the best thing you could like. That's
Yeah.
the ultimate." But like, I truly understand that now. Like yesterday, we went and did some volunteering with a couple of coworkers. With just some families that aren't able to provide gifts for their families, and so they come in. Community donates all of these gifts, and we kind of help them shop and pick out things for their kids and stuff like that. And it makes you so appreciative of the stuff that you have, and yeah, and just being able to give back and to help other people. I just started finding so much more value in that. And you talked about like kind of being a reflection. Like I always say, like I want to be the best reflection of Christ that I can
Yeah.
be. Like I want when people see me, I want them to say, that's a Christian. That's like what a true follower of Christ is. And that's what I want people to know me for. I always said, like when I die, I don't want people to talk about the things I had or the job I did, whatever. Like I want people to say he was a person of faith. He cared about the right things. He loved his family. He loved his friend. Like that's what I want. And so, I just started feeling, like I said, pulled more to like to doing more and to, I guess, to living that life more boldly and again, not hiding it and letting people see it.
I love
Hey,
it.
you sent me Matthew, you sent me a text message when we were talking about this because I know you're in this transition period and I want to get to that. But you said, "Hey, do you think it's a good time to talk about it now, or maybe you'll come back to it now, come back to it
Yeah.
later?" And I thought about that. I'm like, well, this is such a cool story because it was just what you said. You're 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 really walking this path of wearing your feelings and your reflection towards your faith on the outside. And I kind of want to go back to something I was thinking about when you were first talking about that. I have a buddy who's a doctor here in Columbus, and he deals with some pretty traumatic things. And I got to talking to him last year. I said, "How do you separate all this? And you go home and be a dad and be a husband when you're dealing with all this during the day." And he said, "I pray. I pray when I get in my car. I pray when I get home." And I never thought about your position as a reporter. You see that stuff every day, and you're talking about it, and you're relaying that.
Mhm.
I didn't even realize what kind of a dark place that could take you to because again, you're inundated with it and you're on camera with a smile talking about some of the worst things that happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, prayer, right? That's how you're getting there. And your faith and you're walking by faith. So, um, in this transition, Where are you going next? Like what, I don't know. Can you talk about what the next step is? Are you allowed to?
Yeah, I can talk about it to an extent. Some of it's not necessarily public. So I will say, going back to, you mentioned, my post a couple of weeks ago, I guess I didn't necessarily realize at the time, like when I posted it and how I maybe worded some of it, that a lot of people thought that I was going to become a priest or like enter some faith vocation. A lot of people thought that I'm getting out of the industry. And so I guess first and foremost, I'll say I'm not getting out of the industry. I'm staying in it for now. I feel like have some more faith based goals that I want to achieve in my life, and we'll see kind of where God leads me down those paths in the next few years and things like that. But I think for me, like you said, uh, particularly in the mornings, I could be out at a fatal shooting and there's investigators and police and they got to do their job. And it's not unheard of for me to be staring either at a covered or uncovered dead body for 3-4 hours because they got to leave it there. They got to do their investigation. And so you're talking about some of the dark things. And like when you get home and you realize that you were just staring at, somebody who just lost their life because of some sort of senseless violence, because somebody else felt like they had the right to take that life. It does weigh on you. And so I would go through therapy and stuff like that, and I tried to fill that void for a few years just the wrong ways. And it's funny, I used to think to myself, man, I'm so jealous of the apostles. Like I'm so jealous of the disciples that used to get to like live in the time of Jesus and talk to him and hear him and see him and all of these things. And as a Catholic, one of the big things I started doing is I get off at 12 o'clock every day, and my church would do mass at 4 o'clock, but for an hour beforehand, they would do adoration. And so like I would go and I would sit and I would kneel for an hour before church, and I would just be in the presence of Christ. And so, I thought to myself, all of the things that like I would say like I'm jealous of, I can still do. Like he's there. I get to talk to him. I get to listen to him. I get to hear him. And so like just being in that presence was so grounding for me, and was like, it just completely changed my perspective. And, a couple of years ago, I tried to do a story with a couple of Ohio State football players with this whole sports gambling thing and everything that's become just such a craze in the world. And I wanted to talk to them about like some of the abuse that they were facing and some of the comments and things like that from these people that are losing bets and like attacking them online because of it. And it was so crazy because they were just like, I don't care about any of this. It wasn't even on their radar. They were just so grounded in their faith and where their value came from and where their purpose came from. And it was like, these are 19 and 20-year-old kids who have more grounding than I do. And so that was like a big part of it. And I just, to your point, I just started immersing myself in prayer more, and listening to him more, and just trying to follow what I truly believed he was calling me to do. So I guess going back to some of the next steps, I have taken another position in the industry, and so I'll be moving away. And you know, over the last, maybe 4 to 6 months during this process, I had a lot of doors open, both in news and out of news. And either by my own choice or by other circumstances, all of those doors like started to slowly close. But this one door just stayed open the entire time. And it was probably the hardest door for me to consider walking through, because I'll say going far away, leaving family, leaving my friends, leaving the comfort of everything I know here, leaving my church that, I've been super involved in over the last year, lecturing and trying to volunteer and becoming more involved in some different groups and things like that. So, uh, everything was like, oh my gosh, it was so easy to stay here. It just made so much more sense from my own perspective and in my mind. But this door was open for a reason. And so it's funny, I was out of town doing this interview and I was just walking around afterwards and I stumbled upon a church. And all of these kids were flowing out from their morning mass and stuff like that. And I asked the priest, I was like, hey, I'm in town for an interview. I just feel like I need to pray on this and discern this a little bit more. And he was like, go in there. And I knelt in there for over an hour. He actually left. He came up to me at one point and just said, just make sure the doors are locked when you leave. And I said, absolutely. And he just left me in the church alone for an hour. And I just sat there and prayed and tried to listen and just try to figure out what his calling is. So you know, it's really difficult to, like I said, leave the comfort of all my family and friends and everything that I've grown accustomed to over the last 5 years. But I truly, with all my heart, believe that his plan is perfect, his timing is perfect, and if this door stayed open, there was a reason for it. And so you just got to walk through it. And um, I think one thing I heard recently, on a podcast was talking about taking joy in the pain, because it's in the pain and in the suffering that we get closer to Christ. And so, taking those moments and being thankful for them, as difficult as they are, is trying to find the gratitude in those dark moments and those hard moments, and realizing that those are the moments that are going to get you closer to Him. That's something that I've just really focused on, and I'm just trying to just fully trust His plan for me, and wherever He wants me to go, and wherever I end up is where I'm supposed to be.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
I love that. I admire the fact that you're taking that. It's that walking by that leap of faith, that walking by faith and not by sight. That's incredible, man. I admire that. So thank you for listening, and thank you for walking that path.
Yeah, yeah. It's I guess one thing is I don't want to say exactly where I'm going right now, just because,
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
said, it's
yeah.
not entirely public knowledge. But what I can say is, it's eh, for lack of a better term, it's a pretty secular area, and so one of the things that I talked about, as I was going through this process, with the people that will be my, directors and my direct supervisors and stuff, is saying, hey, this is important to me. Being bold about my faith and being outspoken and not hiding it is really important to me. And is that something that you think people will be receptive to, and think something that you think that will be okay here? And they, reassured me. And so yeah, I think, it's maybe an area that, like I said, I feel like I'm being called to go for a reason. And yeah, being called to go and continue this, yeah, just outward, um I don't know, outward expression of my faith and how important it is to me.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I know, Chef, you've been through a very similar path in your life, and you've been met with a lot of different things like that. Does this
Oh, yeah.
resonate with you?
I think everybody's got a story, and uh, definitely when you look back on your life and all the leap of faith, as Matthew's talking about, there's a reason why it happens. And some people say, oh, it's the universe or whatever, but I think it does. It just comes down to God's plan. And I think, yeah, sometimes you're doing things you don't even know why, but it's the Holy Spirit guiding you. And it's,
Hmm.
yeah, like, and I'll tell you what, God's delays are not God's denial. Sometimes people go, why does this happen to me? I said, if everything was easy, we would just die of boredom. I guarantee it. That's a fact. I mean, we get pushed in different directions, and sometimes people don't know what's happening. And you know what? We're all lost. We're all sinners, and it makes it so easy not to judge others when you just realize, hey, I got to focus on me and what's right for me and my family, and not what we worry about. We worry about so much what other people are doing, and we create scenarios in our head all the time of things that haven't happened yet, instead of just
Oh,
remaining present and doing what's right for you. And like I said earlier, just being the shining example. Mike Sweeney, one of my best friends who was on our podcast earlier, he's probably one guy, his whole family, his father, his whole family, they walk the talk. I mean, they're the most guided family I've ever been around. And you watch how their whole family, it's a miracle to watch and be around. It has nothing to do with money or anything else other than the human beings they are. And I've always just tried to roll. He's been a role model for me forever, and it's for those reasons. And his
well,
fate. Go ahead.
no, go. Oh, I was just going to say, you mentioned like asking the question why things happen. And again, just because of the industry I'm in and because I see so much terrible things, you start asking that question just so much,
Sure.
like, why is this happening? And I've seen, people that I don't know go, stories that I've covered, just go through some of the most traumatic things. But I've also, one of the things people always tell us about at NBC4, they're like, you guys seem to really like each other. And I'm like, we do. Like, my coworkers are truly my best friends. And again, that's another part of like the hard aspect of leaving, is like, I don't know that like you go to a newsroom anywhere else and find like the people that I've found here. But I've seen my coworkers go through some unbelievably difficult things that you just want to like look up to God and say, why is this happening? And and if she watches this, she'll know who I'm talking about. But like I've seen one of my coworkers in particular go through something that no parent or mother should ever have to go through, and to see how she's taken that darkness and turn it into this unbelievably bright light for other people in the world. There's pain in there's purpose in the pain. And so like, and so, yeah, you start asking these questions, why, and it's not up for us to know why or to decide why or
Yeah.
figure out why. It's just up to us to trust that there is a purpose behind it, and eventually we'll find it. And so, yeah, I think that's a huge aspect of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I always tell
Wow.
people, on purpose, and don't worry about the outcome sometimes. Just keep telling yourself, or ask the question, what is my purpose? I ask that every morning. You get up and go, what's my purpose today? And the answer comes back every time. So, yeah, it's when you get locked in like that, everybody gets off track every once in a while, and that's why forgiveness is so important, to just realize, what, there's people like, I'm older than, you know I've gotten older, and I've learned my lessons so many times. When people, oh, you shouldn't do that. It's like, you got to just let people, go through the experience and come up with their own answers, because, being judgmental or thinking people are stupid or whatever, allowing people to have that experience to grow and become better is so important. So,
Yeah, it's purpose and perseverance. Like I think a lot of people, maybe they, it's like when Christ is carrying the cross, he fell three times, but God made a way. God made a
yeah,
way. He
yeah,
sent him Simon of Cyrene. And it's just getting back up and continuing. So I think a lot of people, will fall off and say, I can't do this. I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of His grace or His love or His forgiveness.
yeah.
But everybody always is, and it's just about you. If you fall or something happened, you get up, you ask for forgiveness, and you just keep trying to persevere to the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think my point of
Yeah.
what I was saying was allowing people to make their own mistakes, and just loving them through it, versus, you
Yeah.
know, putting them down, or looking at making.
Virtue signaling.
Don't think, well, I'm so much better. I always look at people and go, I've done that way more times than you have. The sooner you quit hitting your head on the wall, your headache will go away. But go for it, have fun. But again, if you can always be loving with people and forgiving, they'll always
Hmm.
remember that. When people come up and go, I was kind of a jerk and you were always really good to me. I said, hey, I was probably that same guy too back in high school, or mid-20s. And anyways, it's neat
What?
how life works out.
Yeah, you talked about my post, Ian, and like, for as many hundreds and hundreds of comments that there were, like, positive, and people, so thankful about, me being bold about my faith. There's the two or three people that come in and gotta criticize whatever, stop shoving this down people's throats type thing. And it's just like, to your point, Chef, it's like, I'm not gonna get mad. Like, you know, they'll find their way, in Christ's
Yeah,
timing and stuff like that. And it's about loving them anyway. And if somebody
that's
wants to
it.
criticize me, you know what? I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to love them, and Christ will bring them, to Him when it's their times.
I always like saying too, when people point out something about me that may be negative, I usually say, that's a really good point. I never thought of it. And I always thank people. If, being criticized in the restaurant, I said, I had someone once really laying into me about the service and the food. They were just having a bad day. And I looked at them and I said, I feel like you're trying to make me make my restaurant and our business better, and I really appreciate it. And because they were really laying into me, and I said, we need more people like you in the world that are going around really voicing their opinion. And I think you're right, and you're not as upset as I think you should be. And it really froze the guy, and it kind of made him realize, like, hey, wait, this isn't really, he wanted more of a reaction of me to deny it or something, but you know.
Right.
Sometimes the message sounds negative, but what they're really saying is, I care about you. I want to see you do better. So I always internalize it that way and go, and I'll say, hey, thanks for yelling at me. If you didn't yell at me, I wouldn't have taken you so seriously. If you didn't call me an
Hmm.
ugly Long Beach State hat wearing mofo, I might have just thought I was the coolest guy in the room. But I'm gonna work on my appearance and my service and the food. And thank you. And it's and we always have fun with that. And we leave people in our restaurant. That's why I love going to work every day. Everyone leaves happy, and we remind them what great people they are, no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah.
they could say that it could sound negative, but there's always a positive message if you can hear it that way. It's fun.
Yeah, Chef. So this is so cool that we're talking about this, because I remember when I talked about Matthew to you. This is, all three of us use our public platform for a positive turnaround, a positive result, and I really like that. It's not, you're not using your public platform for gain. You're not using it, like you talked about earlier, Matthew, for money or for things, or you really are using it for a positive, and you're an influence, and you're really bringing people along with you, and I absolutely love that. And that's one of the reasons that Chef and I become such good friends. We have that kindred spirit. We have those things together.
Yeah,
So,
no, and yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I was just going to say real quick, just I guess in response to the Chef, what you were talking about. And, I think that one of the things like for us too is really important is understanding that like we've all been in those dark places like ourselves. And I was just a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast, and I've heard this story a million times as a Christian, the story about the shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one. And the other day I was listening to it, and I broke down in uncontrollable tears because like I recognized that I was the one. Like I was so far gone for periods of my life just chasing the wrong things, and like he left the 99 to like bring me back. And like when you realize that you're the one, and you start to see that, other people that are in your life that may criticize your, whatever, they're the one in a different, like, a different herd, and he'll find them too. But like, I just broke down uncontrollably because I was like, wow, like I truly was the one. And he came back to find me, to bring me back to the flock. And so it was, like I said, I've heard the story, the parable 100 times, but like a couple weeks ago, it really just, it hit me like a wrecking ball, and I broke down because I was like, wow, like his love and his grace and everything is truly so powerful, and it made me see that story just in a completely different way that I never had before.
The other thing
Matt,
I like to
appreciate. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going
go
to
ahead.
say
You're fine. Go ahead, please.
the other thing I like to say is the meaning is yours to keep. And I always tell people whatever something happens to you, the meaning you give it is yours to keep, and only yours. And I do that a lot I did it. I did it about a week ago. I'm driving when people pass you and they're going really, really fast, and I was using that as as a tool to, how am I going to react to this? And somebody driving really crazy, and everyone the meaning most people give it is that guy or gal, whatever. They get all fired up, and for some reason I just go, I bet they really got to go to the bathroom bad. They're trying to get home, and it really made me laugh instead of getting angry. It was the funniest thing. And I like to tell people that story to go because it'll forever stick in their head. Like when someone flies by you, you're going, they're just driving crazy, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden, if you go, you know what it's like to when you're 5 minutes from home, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I really got to go. And it made me laugh so hard when someone went flying by me. I go, the meaning is mine to keep. No one can change it. And it was so funny. And so I always, and what I said earlier, when people are yelling at you going, I didn't like the way you looked at me or this or that, instead of going, that guy's a jerk, the meaning is like, hey, you're trying to make me a better person. Thank you. Thank you so much, because one thing's for sure, I need a lot of straightening out. And I always tell people I am not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm always searching to get better. And sometimes, again, the message may sound negative, but there's positive in every single thing that happens. So, and you just got to look for
Absolutely.
it, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Matt, we always have these questions we like to ask our guests. It helps our viewers get to know you a little bit better. But because Chef is a chef and I'm a musician, we have these two questions we like to ask.
Okay.
Chef, you know what I'm going to ask.
Yeah. Sunday barbecue, baby.
Yeah, there. So, yeah, there. Okay. So you take the barbecue. I'll take the other one. You go ahead.
Okay. Sunday afternoon, and you're relaxing with your family. You had a nice day at Mass. What's your go-to? What's your Sunday supper go-to? Bing.
So, I will tell you this because the most faithful person I've ever met or known in my life was my grandma, my dad's mother. Her family came from Sicily, Italian Catholics. She volunteered at her church for 50 years. She would
Love it.
wash the vestments for the clergy, and she would polish the pews. And she had an unbelievable, devotion to Mary. And she actually passed away on the Feast of the Assumption this past August. And it was just like, I remember her telling us the day before she died about how she saw Mary come to her in her hospice room and stuff like that. And she passed away the next day on the Feast of the Assumption. And it was just like, nobody could script something that perfect. Only God could. And so I preface what my answer with that because she was the most faithful person I ever knew. And every Sunday it was Italian spaghetti and meatballs,
I love it.
breaded steak, just it was just like the most classic, a classic Italian meal, spaghetti,
That's
meatballs and stuff like that. And she lived in Youngstown, so I didn't get to have it every Sunday. But my dad, they still make it every Sunday and stuff like that after they go to church. And so when I think of like post mass Sunday meal, like I will forever and always think of that meal and think of my
oh,
grandma. So yeah, that's the answer for me. It's one of those things, these old Italian grandmas, like they don't have recipes. Like people try to copy it and try to make it. And it's like, no, it's made with love. And so they can't even tell you how they make it. And everybody tries to copy it, but it never ends up tasting the same as when she makes it. So
yeah, I
yeah,
gotcha.
it breaks my heart that I'll never get to have it again. But my mom does pretty good. Comes pretty close. So it's not a bad second place.
So the other one comes from my side of the industry, Matthew. So let's see, I've asked this a couple different ways, but let's just go ahead and ask it straight out. So you're listening to your favorite music, the music that gets you through the day. Let's say what's your favorite band all time?
Oh, favorite band of all time. I grew up listening to classic rock with my dad. He had an unbelievable record collection and everything. So favorite band of all time is hands down the Beatles.
All right, very good, Chef. If he had said 38 Special, we were done. We were done because we wrapped it all the way around full circle. We were talking about that earlier. So what was the first concert you ever went to?
Oh my gosh. So that's funny because the first concert I ever went to was way, way, way later in life than it should have been. I was in probably late high school or early college before I ever went to a real concert. And it was a punk rock concert. It was like Newfound Glory, like All Time Low. And it was a bunch of like random, like kind of punk rock, emo bands, I guess people would call them. I had a lot of friends in high school and stuff, like college growing up, that were in bands and played that kind of music and stuff. So I just kind of got into it with them. And so I remember it was at Newport, which is an unbelievable venue. But yeah, it was Newfound Glory and some other bands with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I want to tell you, we've really appreciated having you on today. I really want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for carving it out during the week. We talked about your schedule, and it's just insane out and how you manage it.
There's, like I said, before we even signed on, I got, trying to figure out movers and packing and place to live and all this stuff. The last few weeks have been a whirlwind, but I, certainly was going to make time for this. And Ian, we've, had a chance to, to talk and connect over the years. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate that you guys felt like I had any sort of story worth telling. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Chef, anything you want to throw in here?
No, Matt. Hey, it was an honor to meet you, and good luck. I like your leap of faith. I like your story. I like what motivates you, and family first, faith first. You're on the right track, and no, this has been great. And thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Praying for you. So you have a great day. And we'll keep going here. Thank you.
Yeah. Take care, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today for this episode of our podcast, The Spice Age. My name is Ian Thomas Hayes, and I am the co-host of the podcast, along with my good friend, Chef Matt Toomey, the creator of Toomey's Seasoning and the chef for Toomey's Restaurant in Mammoth, California. We're going to be bringing this podcast to you weekly, and we're very excited about all the different guests we have lined up and all the content we have for you. You can find this podcast at www.toomeyseasonings.com. You can also find the podcast at my website, www.ianthomashays.com, or anywhere else you listen to your regular podcasting. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.